With that, we'll come to our final intervener, none other than Ms. Zainah Anwar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's nice to be on this friendly panel, especially when the kind of work that you do, you know, you're just pummeled on every single day. I guess I don't want to repeat what everyone has said. I think maybe to just think about, you know, how, you know, we live in a country where Islam is used as a source of law and public policy. This is like my favorite. I'm always making this statement. How do we manage this? How do we understand Islam? You know, how do we interpret Islam? Who has the right to interpret? Who has the right to decide this interpretation will be the source of law and not that interpretation? This verse in the Quran will be used and not that verse. This fiqh opinion shall be the opinion we will use to draft this law. How is that decision made? Who are the decision makers? What are the principles that they use to make these decisions? You know, because so often, you know, certainly the work of Sisters in Islam and now G25, you know, when you have a different opinion from what the authorities have decided, you get labeled, you get demonized, you get accused of being kafir, you know, deviant, you're threatened, you know, death threats, you know. This is Islam. Why would we want Islam? Really, I ask you. How do we draw people closer to Islam when the Islam that you present to the public, the Islam that you draft into law, the Islam that you implement, brings so much injustice and discrimination to the citizens of the country? And I'm not just talking about non-Muslims, Muslims as well, and in particular, Muslim women. We get the worst, actually, not the Ahmadiyyas, not the Shias, it's Muslim women. And if you just compare the laws, whether it's the Islamic family law, whether it's the Guardianship Act, whether it's the Distribution Act, Muslim women are the worst off in all these laws that affect our well-being on a daily basis. Yeah? So who decided? Who made this law? And when these laws are made, I'm just keeping track of time here, and we challenge it, you know, we're accused of being kafir, of being, you know, against Islam, anti-God, anti-Sharia. Penat dah dengar, you know, anti-God, anti-Sharia, anti-Islam. Tak ada ke argument lain, vocabulary lain? Tak ada ke? Ini stuck at these three phrases, anti-God, anti-Sharia, anti-Islam. You know? And those of us who are doing this work are just reading and reading and reading and reading and trying to understand our religion better. And all they can say to us, you're deviant, you're anti-God, you're anti-Islam, you're anti-Sharia. It just reflects the depth of ignorance, misguidance, and rather the desperation of those in power and in authority who actually are using religion to control our lives because they see the reality on the ground is galloping, changing, way ahead. And this is where Halina's point about the insecurity, way ahead, that they can't cope. So how do we cope? Let's control. How do we control? Let's use religion. You know, and this is really where, in terms of, you know, what I want, it's our, if change is not going to come from the top, and change never does not come from the top, we at the bottom, we the citizens, we the ummah, we the rakyat, we have to bring that change. We have to make it politically costly for our political masters who abuse the religion in order to remain in power and in order to maintain control of our lives. And for me, what is the saddest, and you've heard this, you know, the writings of, you know, Mustafa Akyol, and all of us who are here, many of us who are here, you know, the Islamic tradition is so rich And there's so much to be proud of in the Islamic tradition, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the different, the thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages in fiqh books, in tafsir book. The issue is, like Mustafa said, it's choice. Which tafsir do we want to choose? Which fiqh opinion do we want to choose? Do we want to choose the liberal opinions? Do we want to choose the illiberal opinions? And on what basis do we decide on this? So for me, it is so sad that our religious tradition and religious sources have so much that's liberal and positive and that celebrate diversity and differences. Yeah, our constitution, like Aston said, is a very liberal constitution. Yeah, that recognizes pluralism and fundamental liberties and democracy and equality. And yet, we're not using this. Somehow something has gone wrong, and, we know many reasons why it's gone wrong. So how do we get it right? Really, how do we set it right? I think, the panelists have given, examples. I really think, that change is not going to happen in this country without public outrage. And we've started, that there's already public outrage. I think Bersih is a prime example of that collective voice of the citizenry who are unhappy with so many things. The fact that G25 exists, why? A group of very establishment figures who don't usually rock the boat, except for Farida, who always rocked the boat, even when she was in government. But these are establishment figures who don't speak out publicly on these issues and rock the boat. How did it come to that point where these voices are now emerging? And I think it's so wonderful that this is happening. And for us to continue to believe that change is not possible, we can't. Don't ask me about Islam. It's too controversial. I don't want to get into trouble.
I don't know enough.
Yeah, I don't know enough. That is a cop-out. Really, that is a cop-out. I think if we want to change this country, to bring about, a country that's based on our constitutional guarantees, and to bring about the Islam that we say, if we want to make Islam relevant to our lives today, we need to speak out, and I really take the position, and Sisters has been taking this position, that everyone, every citizen, Muslim or non-Muslim, you know Arabic or you don't Arabic, you're covered up or you're not covered up, you're man or woman, you have a right to speak out about Islam, about how it impacts your lives on a daily basis. There is so much fear about speaking out, about challenging, but if we don't speak out, if we don't create this public voice that is pushing for an understanding of Islam that upholds equality, justice, dignity, compassion, all wonderful values in Islam, and we pray 5 times a day and we say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, but too often that the compassion and the mercifulness is devoid in our actions. How do we translate compassion? How do we translate mercy in our daily lives, in our laws, in how we implement our laws? And I guess those in authority don't care about that. So it is for us as citizens, to really take up that struggle and to call out all the abuses, that happen. And as Pat says, there's a high cost, of course. But I think if we want change, we must be willing to pay the cost. We must be willing to pay the price of speaking out. Yeah? The fact that Sisters in Islam has survived for almost 30 years, in spite of all the attacks against us, court cases, book banning, fatwa, now it's fatwa, we've been declared deviant, so the fact that we have survived shows that there is resonance in society to the message that we're giving in. So now they're kind of like quiet on sisters, is G25 now. They are the bad guys. They are the anti-God, anti-Islam, anti-Sharia, deviant group. It's really about power and authority. It's about maintaining power, using religion to maintain power and authority. And for me, it's really about, you know, the importance of civil society. Everyone has raised it. That change is not going to come from the top, so it is us. You know, many people, like, you know, like Pat said, would say, but, you know, but I don't know enough about Islam to speak about it. I say, speak from your personal perspective. Your experience of living Islam, this is coming from Muslims, your experience of living Islam, you know, the ways that you're discriminated against. You know, I have so many cases of women being so upset that their irresponsible brother, who never takes care of the family, never takes care of the parents who are ill and dying and poor, is the daughter who physically, financially, emotionally take care of their parents, and yet when the parent dies, this good-for-nothing son gets double the share. Is that justice? Is it wrong to even raise the question, is this just or not? Is this what God means, you know, when God talks about justice? You know, at funerals, this is the big question. You know, that many widows, you know, who've been married for 45 years, you know, to the man, and then he dies, and the son, you know, gets more than the wife of 45 years. And it's not as if the son is going to share his inheritance with his mother. No, it's for his business. Several businesses that have gone bankrupt, you know, oh, here's another pool of money that I can use for my business, you know. So all these questions need to be asked. You know, I mean, for me, it's like, you know, when you see professors with PhDs from London going on television justifying the right of a man to marry a 10-year-old girl, that is sick. You know, what kind of an understanding of Islam? Because supposedly the Prophet married Aisha at the age of 8. How about the fact that the Prophet married Khadija, you know, who was 15 years older? How about the fact that the Prophet married Khadija, who was a widow? Why couldn't that be the model of marriage? Who decided that the Prophet's marriage to Aisha shall be the model marriage and not the Prophet's marriage of Khadija? Is that in the Quran? It's not. It's men, M-E-N actually, who made those decisions. So these are man-made laws, man-made interpretations, man-made decisions to use interpretations that is more logical to their values and to their way of life. Yeah? It is not God's law. God did not sit in parliament and pass all those laws. So stop accusing people who challenge and who speak out as saying you're against God. No, I'm against those men who sit in parliament and pass these laws without any debate. That is the problem. You know, no debate in parliament, no press coverage, no debate in society. You know, but that is changing. So for me, that hope, you know, what gives me hope is that more and more voices are speaking out. Yeah, and I really appeal to all of you in your little ways now with social media, with you know, the internet and all that, to just write, even if it's a small. I mean, if you go, whenever Sisters in Islam is attacked, our Facebook, I mean, somebody should do a PhD on the Sisters in Islam Facebook on different issues. You know, the attacks against us and the language is so abusive. There's nothing Islamic, there's nothing informed, there's nothing rational. And the majority of the comments that we get on the Facebook would be just hantam, just attacks against us. You know, an abusive language in the name of Islam. This is what you mean by, why? Really, why would we want to live in an Islamic state if this is the kind of Islam that you're flying the flag? You know, so really, we would appreciate it if others, people like you who are here, who want to have a rational, informed, civil discussion on how Islam, the ways Islam is used as a source of law and public policy in this country, to get more and more voices speaking out. And I really do agree with what Aston said. In the women's movement, sometimes, you know, we have this big debate. Should we even be negotiating with this government that's so delegitimized and discredited and all that? But we never give up hope. you know. And I guess if you are doing legal advocacy, you want law reform, you want policy reform, you do have to negotiate. You do have, you know, when the opportunity comes out, we never give up. Even right now, the current debate on right of the unilateral conversion of children at the point of divorce. You know, like, okay, you know, MCA is calling for a meeting, MIC is calling for a meeting, and we're like, should we even bother? You know, we've had these meetings for the past 10 years with the government, and nothing has changed. They've reached agreement, but they're so cowardly. They don't even want to present their agreement, their solution, which is a good solution, to Parliament, because they don't know how to defend it. So, you know, we know how to defend it, but they are too scared to defend it because they're so scared of the political price, you know, of defending it. So what I really, my last point, you know, what I want to push for and what I really hope for is that, you know, the government, I don't know, those of you who are in the opposition movement and all that, that really the government and the opposition parties should start a bipartisan approach. You know, to adopt a bipartisan approach to deal with all these problems, these really long-standing, contentious issues that have caused so much heartbreak, yeah, to so many citizens in this country, so that these issues don't get politicized, you know, so that you reach agreement together in a bipartisan, you know, look at what are the problems. Let's look at find the solutions in a fair-minded ways. And we did this. But, you know, with the Islamic family law, if you remember in 2000 and I can't remember now, it's so long ago, it's been 10 years since we reached agreement with the government on the terrible amendments to the Islamic family law, you know, where the husband takes a second wife and he has a right to get a share of his wife's property to support his second wife. Like, you know, where is the justice in all this? You know, we reach agreement, and yet you know, those amendments have not been sent to Parliament. So how do we work together, you know, to push for all these reforms that's already agreement has been reached, but somehow there's just no political will to push it in Parliament? How can we all work together and really create that public voice and public pressure to really make it politically costly in the end for both the government and the opposition to continue to ignore justice, to ignore kindness, to ignore compassion? Because in the end, that's about it. And then what kind of Malaysia do we want for all the citizens of Malaysia? I think we really need to seriously think about all these issues and really have the courage to deal with them once and for all. Thank you.